What's going on YouTube? Tony Do checking in with you all. Episode number 2 of a day in the life of a home health physical therapist. Apologies if it's very windy out, but just enjoying my coffee, taking a look at some views before work here. So if you haven't seen episode 1 of this series, I go more into depth on the types of visits we have as well as the time requirements and all that. So generally how I like to do things now that I've been working here for about a year is normally front loading the week and then a lighter end of the week is how I like to operate. So 25 visit points. If you guys again go back to the first video, I go into more details about that. That's a full week. That's our productivity requirements, but I like to see anywhere from 7 to 9 Monday through Wednesday, and then anything, Thursday I'll usually hit productivity, maybe a little bit higher, and then anything Friday is basically extra points. So in the last video as well, I spoke on working out every single morning and going on walks. The walks we still do, but usually Mondays and Tuesdays I take off from the gym because, again, I like to have those days as my busy work days, and I'll work out every other single day of the week. So that's kind of the setup. Today's 8.25 points, so let's get into it. It's about 9 a.m. right now, heading to see the first patient. Lives about 20 or so minutes away, so we'll see you guys there. Just to give you guys an idea of typically what I bring with me into my car. First and foremost, you guys know me, gotta have the energy drink. This is a White Monster, sugar-free. This usually goes on top of my coffee that I have in the morning, or usually some form of energy drink, not always a Monster. Gotta have the agua as well to stay hydrated. And then I also have a protein bar in my backpack that I'll have around lunch or so, 12 o'clock. And then I have work phone here. I have a Bluetooth keyboard here, which is an absolute lifesaver. This thing saves me so much time for documentation. I have my clipboard here, in which I did all the preparation last night on patients that I'm seeing today to kind of expedite my documentation as well. And then I have, this is a starter care folder here. We usually give this folder to patients the first time that we're seeing them. Has a lot of information in there, their consent forms, all that. All right, so patient number 1 today, give you guys some information about this visit. It's a routine visit or a follow-up visit. These are usually the visits that I give my assistants basically 100% of the time, but on the occasion when I want to see the patient for a treatment visit, I will plot that to myself. The reason today I'm seeing this patient is I want to perform and educate them on how to do slide board transfers. So some background of this patient: she is relatively young, in her 50s, I believe, and some notable things to mention. She had a spinal cord injury in her thoracic spine area years ago, and it was incomplete, meaning that she still has some function, motor and sensory, in her lower extremities, though not 100% there. She's still able to move it a little bit, and some substance abuse as well in her history, some pressure sores she dealt with, but all of that as a result, when she was in the hospital and rehab, she was in bed for a very long time, and her legs actually are heavily contracted, her hamstrings. So basically, think about her legs being bent around 90 to 95 degrees at all times, and when you try to straighten them, it's very resistant. You're unable to straighten them, really can't get it past or further than 90 degrees towards extension. Of course, there is some musculoskeletal at a tissue level flexibility deficits there for the hamstrings, but a lot of the involvement, in my opinion, is hypertonicity from the injuries that she has had neurologically. So what I'm going to do today is educate her and the caregivers on how to do slide board transfers, because she is bedbound or chair-bound, and she requires assistance from the caregivers to get from her bed to her chair. So the slide board just makes that easier, as well as just gonna do some stretching, some manual therapy for her legs, and maybe some core stability and strengthening as well there. So all right, for those of you that don't know, this is a slide board right here. Essentially, you set the slide board on a surface, whether the bed or the wheelchair. This end goes to the other surface, and then the therapist, or they perform it themselves depending on their level, you help them slide across, which makes it easier for the patient as well as the caregiver, as the person helping them. Session 1 complete, successful. There were a few things we had to kind of brainstorm and troubleshoot around because her contractions are so bad. They kept kind of bumping into the leg rest on the wheelchair, but we were able to do it. So something that we're just going to continue working on with the patient, training the caregiver, and getting them to a point where maybe she can do that transfer even by herself. So now I'm going to use this keyboard to finish the documentation for this visit. Normally I like to finish the documentation right after I leave the visit so it doesn't pile up towards the end of the day. It leaves me very anxious that way. Real sweaty at this point. Actually pretty tired for the first visit. But gonna do the documentation. I do have some orders. Medical records sent me some orders signed by the physicians of previous patients that approves me to plot visits for my assistant moving forward. So I'm gonna do that as well. So we'll see you all after the second patient. Now, something very important that I wanna mention is being able to effectively plan your routes with patients. This is what I have to consider every single day. But being able to minimize the driving time between patients in order to maximize your efficiency as well as put less wear and tear in your car. So what I'll do in the beginning of the week is I'll take a look at where everyone is and try to plan each patient on days where I have a lot of patients in that respective area. Otherwise, if you're driving around everywhere, you have less time to spend with the patient and subsequently less patients being able to be seen that day. And this isn't always possible, but this is what you strive to do. So my first patient is about 10 minutes away from my second patient. And then my next few are about 5 to 10 minutes away after that from each other. And then my last patient is about 25 minutes or so away, but that's closer to home. So then I loop back, see that patient, and then head home after that. So that's the best way to do it. Checking in with you all after patient number 2. A very tough case. It was a physical therapy evaluation, returning patient of ours. He was recently hospitalized, then rehab facility, then hospitalized, then rehab facility related to congestive heart failure, pneumonia, deconditioning, and all that. So he went through that process over the last few months and now discharged home from the rehab facility. In my opinion, a bit premature, but anyways, we'll be helping him for the next 1 or 2 months or maybe even longer than that, but we'll assess at a later date. So he's a 90-year-old fella, was a previous patient of ours, has numerous falls and has had numerous falls since coming back. He does have dementia, which has progressively gotten worse since I saw him. So it makes it hard for the family to safely and effectively take care of him because his safety awareness is just so poor, constantly arguing with his wife and his son. But in this case, really what we can do is when we work with him, aim to improve his functional mobility, balance, strength, endurance, and just as important as that, educate the wife and the son on how they can safely care him because they're with him the majority of the time. So how they can safely, perform mobility with him, move him, help him with things to not only prevent falls, but decrease the burden of care on them because it is a lot to care for a patient, especially with dementia. So we'll be seeing him for the next 6 or so weeks, but maybe even longer than that. All right, so visit number 3 complete. It was a reassessment visit, meaning that a therapist came in and saw him initially. That wasn't me. I think I was too busy that day. And then they did a bunch of functional outcome measures to kind of see where his baseline is with strength, balance, and all that. Then I came in today, did those same outcome measures, and he demonstrated great progress. So overall, it was a great session. Him and his wife are very thankful for the services that we provide. And they even said, there's an aspect of his demeanor that we can't assess, and it's his attitude towards life and participating in life and doing things that keeps him busy. And before he wasn't like that. So things like that, man, make the job so much better. So overall, great session. It is currently 2 o'clock, just finished up with my 4th patient, which was another physical therapy evaluation. Sweet as can be, 84-year-old lady, recently hospitalized for hypercalcemia as well as vitamin D toxicity, which isn't something that I see all too often. Just due to that, she had altered mental status, physical deconditioning. So she just came home, and the main thing with her is her family, her daughter specifically, wanted my input on where to put equipment, right? As far as durable medical equipment, DME, like a ramp to enter the home as she has a hard time ascending and descending stairs, where to put grab bars throughout the home, bathroom, hallway, in order to make sure she's safe as she lives by herself. Just things like that. But overall, she actually moves around pretty well. I adjusted a few walkers for her because they were far too high for her. So overall, it's a great session. We'll probably see her for about 6 or so visits. She won't need all that many as compared to the gentleman before, where we're gonna need a lot more with him. So on to the 5th patient. All right, so patient number 5 completes just a standard routine visit again. This time the focus of this session was on pain management of the left shoulder and arm, as well as strengthening of the whole area. Pretty straightforward. Something funny to note is that I guess I'll preface with this. Something I like to do as a clinician is try to learn how to say thank you in someone's native language. Being Vietnamese, I know how much it means to, my family when other people try to learn about their culture or try to learn some form of their language. So that's just my way of, paying respect there. And I can always see people really appreciate it. So today I said thank you in Korean. I learned it from a prior patient, 감사합니다. Kamsahamnida. I may not be saying it the best, but anyways, I was saying it to them as I was leaving, and then I opened the door and all of her friends were standing there who were also Korean. And I was like, Kamsahamnida, Kamsahamnida, and they were all saying it back to me. And then the patient's spouse goes, he's Vietnamese. And then all of a sudden they're all like, oh, thank you for your help, thank you. So I just thought it was really funny that they all thought I was Korean just because I was speaking their language. But just little things like that, guys, to go out of your way and try to pay respect to the patient, and that also gets buy-in as well. So on to my last patient of the day. Is now 3:30 in the afternoon. It is a starter care visit, the long visit with copious amounts of documentation and paperwork, but we'll get her done. Starter care visit complete. I am about 30 or so minutes away from finishing the whole set of documentation, but I was in there for about an hour and 15 minutes. She was an 82-year-old female, reverse total shoulder arthroplasty, second attempt because the first one actually dislocated. For those of you who don't know what that is, it's essentially, so you have your shoulder joint, right? Your glenohumeral joint. The glenoid fossa is kind of like a cup, and then you have your humerus bone, which is kind of like a ball, and that forms your shoulder joint. Flip that around and replace all that. That's a reverse total shoulder arthroplasty. So that's what was completed. Physical therapy and occupational therapy orders at this time. I'm going to add on a home health aide to assist with bathing because she's having a very hard time, of course, because she can't use her arm at all. So I'll add them on, and then I have to call the surgeon as well to get verbal orders so we can come out to see her later this week, as well as see if there's a protocol that they want us to follow. Usually after a procedure like this, the surgeon will send home a protocol with the patient for the therapist to follow, but there's nothing there. And some surgeons are very particular, so I just want to make sure there isn't something specific they want me to follow. So gonna finish the paperwork here in my car, make all those phone calls. I'm weird, I like to do this all before I get home for the night. So we'll see you all back at the apartment. Finally home, all of my notes are complete. It is now 6:09 p.m. I'm going to eat dinner right now, schedule with a few patients. Tomorrow's a lighter day because we have a meeting all day in the office for the most part. So only about 3 or 4 patients tomorrow most likely. So I still have to schedule them, prep for them tomorrow. So about another hour to hour and a half of work yet. But like I said in the beginning of the video, today is a longer day than usual. Usually I see about 75% of what I saw today, but today is just one of those long days. In my last video, someone asked me how many hours I work on a week-to-week basis, and it's very hard to calculate. Like today, it's probably gonna be a little over 10 with all things considered and factored in. But later in the week, it might be a lot less. So it's hard to say, but I'd say it's between 40 to 50, somewhere in there. So if you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like and a comment below. If you wanna see more episodes of this in the future, let me know as well. We'll see you all in the next video.